What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pit Crew podcast for episode number 22. It's going to be an exciting one here today in one moment. We're going to be bringing on Ryan Ellis, who just signed on to DGM Racing, which it's been a huge announcement the past couple weeks with him. We got a lot we're going to be catching up on. Cameron, how you feeling today, buddy?
I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to have Ryan Ellis on the show. It's going to be a great one.
Absolutely. With that said, I think we should bring on Ryan Ellis. Ryan Ellis,
what's up, guys?
welcome to the Pit Crew podcast. How you feeling today, buddy?
Sniffly, but happy to be here. How are you guys?
Absolutely. We're doing great, man. So we're going to start it off with where are you from and how did you get into motorsports?
I have been racing myself for 30 years, and my grandfather actually raced on my dad's side as well as my mother's side, and was actually killed in a racing accident in 1958, the same year my dad was born, and somehow my grandma let my dad race. No idea how that flew. So I started racing in like 1993. So it's been a long, long time, but in NASCAR, I think, for 10 or 11 years.
Yeah, you've been at it for a hot minute. I believe your first full season was this last year at Alpha Prime, correct?
Yes, it's crazy to say because I've been in NASCAR for like 10 years, like I said, but I've never run even close to a full-time season until 2 years ago. I ran 31 races and then 33 last year. So finally got to experience the full schedule, and that was wild.
So we're going to start with the beginning where you started out 2012. You got your first part-time ride with Helmut Means Racing on the number 52 car. You ran a handful of races with them. How did that deal come together that really broke you into the NASCAR Xfinity series?
Just like every big name NASCAR driver. No, it was I was racing in the Grand Am series at Road America, I believe, and had been working a radio show with some people that I kind of grew up around in the DC area, and they had a mutual friend that was Jimmy Means, and they needed a guy to just start and park their nationwide series car back in the day, and I hopped over that garage, and I don't know if we made it or not. If we're talking about the one you're talking about, then we made that one, I'm sure, but we missed a few along the way because the fields were so competitive back then. But yeah, it was just a random instance of being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right people, and start and parked quite a bit. So did a lot of 2-lap races before ever actually getting to race my first race.
And that was the beginning of it. So we're going to skip ahead a couple years. 2015, you got a break with Circle Sport and then soon a break with BK and ran a race for Premium as well. So how did you make the jump up to the Cup Series back in 2015 and get the opportunities over there run for BK as well?
Another random connection, because everything is so so sponsorship based in this world. I was in a fraternity in college, Kappa Sigma, and was lucky enough to get connected through one of my fraternity brothers to their CMO of Science Logic at the time, and put a deal together to race my first Cup race. And honestly, at the time, it was kind of a mix of proving that I could race in the Cup Series, but at the same time, it was racing against my heroes. And I mean, every time the season came to an end, I was convinced that it was probably the last race of my career, because I don't really come from family money. I don't really have anything that's keeping me in the sport other than hope streams and whatever I consider, talent wise. So worked really, really hard at the sponsorship side to try to build a sustainable career. And I was like, well, if I get to say I race one Cup race before I lose my career, before I get bought out, that would be freaking awesome. And to just go out there and rub elbows with Jeff Gordon, I'm pretty sure Dale Jr., Tony Stewart at that time, was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. You got to race against a lot of legends. So after that, soon you formed a relationship with Matt Benedetto, a fan favorite in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Can you tell me a little bit about your friendship with Matt and how you eventually became his PR guy for a bit?
And it's because I feel like, as disorganized as I am, he is 10 times more disorganized. So I was supposed to be the full-time guy at BK alongside him, but then I think got bought out by someone, which is just racing, and was literally just looking for a job. And Matt was like, "Just be my PR guy," because we'd always joked about it through our time at TMG, like the motorsports group, as well as BK Racing. I always kind of knew the schedule and knew where we had to be, and just took the job thinking I might do it for 3, 6 months, maybe a year, and kind of rebuild my racing career while I did it. And found out that having a stable job is not that bad. So was just kind of a nice step back while I able to hang out with Matt, be in the garage a little bit, but definitely some tough years for sure.
Absolutely, but you came back from it, and in 2022, 2023, 2024, you got a run for Alpha Prime, and that was amazing. So you finally got your first year full time, and you had that car sponsored up not only for Loco, you had Snapchat, you had all these big companies on the hood of your race car. How did you land all that sponsorship?
Man, I have no idea. I mean, the real answer is we have a good group of people, not to NASCAR out the answer, but like we have a really good group of people that we've built around me. Myself, Sarah Handy, who was just a media member that I had known from my time racing as well as doing PR, who I took a chance on. She took a chance on me as well, and we got Snapchat and some of our other partners. Garrett Miller, Motorsports Management International, my management group. They've worked alongside me to kind of build our own little sales team that we manage between the three of us, and it's crazy. Like the Snapchat call was a good example of me hopping in there, assuming that they're just gonna tell me no, or that they want to do it for free and they can't afford to pay for it because they're Snapchat and they were a legitimate sponsor. So the brands that I've been able to work with, just from like in college, if you had told me I'd work with Snapchat and Four Loco, and be sponsored by the fraternity at some point is absolutely crazy. But work with other brands like Classic Collision and Tableau, who do their first race with us, is it's just wild. I have no idea how someone like me has been able to work with so many great brands.
It's truly incredible. So then we're walking into 2025. DGM Racing, full time opportunity. What stood out with DGM that made you say this was the right choice and this is where I want to take my career? And just how does it feel, walking back into the doors at DGM?
It's really cool. It was a tough decision though, because I always felt like DGM was the team that I wanted to beat, and I'm sure it went the other way too, just because we're so parallel in so many ways, and especially their budgets and team structure. So it was when I finally got to talk to Mario and get to know him and his family, it was almost a no-brainer. Circling back to that Motorsports Management International, my management group, they also are co-owned by Ross Chastain, who has obviously had some phenomenal races with the DGM Racing team. He basically told me if I didn't do it, I was an idiot. So if Ross tells me that, I'm not going to take the idiot path there. I'm like, all right, we're going to DGM, because that would be a pretty stupid career move looking back a year later if I didn't take that opportunity, didn't take that chance. And he's shown just how good those cars can be, just like Kyle, Josh Balicki, so many other people that have buckled into those seats, is they've really shown the potential of the program. And obviously they're just great people, they're racers, and um, I don't know, I just want to be part of it for sure.
Absolutely, and that's so good to hear, and also that you're, bringing that team a lot of sponsorship money that is gonna help them and push them forward, and I think the momentum is going to be great for both you, Ryan, and the team as well. They seem very excited to have you in that car. So if we go on Wikipedia, we got the car numbers that you drove every year. So, for instance, Apple Prime, it was the 45. We got the 43. And then for DGM, it just says TBA. Can we potentially get a little teaser, hint, anything that we can dance around with your car number for next year?
Ooh, let's see. You can help me with this. It's not one of the existing DGM numbers, so that's cool. And I don't think, yeah, I definitely haven't raced in NASCAR, so it's a cool to make our own story. We'll put it that way. And one of our sponsors, Sweetwater Construction, was a big part of us transitioning that and wanting to build our own path and make our own story. Because when we were looking at options, The 92 felt like Josh Williams because I've raced against him for so long. And 91 felt like anyone from Alex LeBay to Weatherman to Balicki. And um, the 36 didn't have any kind of standoutness to me. And then we just kind of got talking and got creative. So I thought we were going to be able to announce it today, but fortunately not.
We'll get the announcement out at some
If you want
point.
to announce it, you can do it. I don't care. I won't. I'm not going to get in trouble though.
Oh, I'm not getting that phone call. On that note, I'm gonna pass it over to Cameron.
Oh my god. Thank you so much, DLB. One of my main questions, being that you spent most of your career in the Xfinity series, what does a typical Saturday or a Friday night look like when you're racing?
I know I'm old, but like I play the old man book or old man stuff to like a T. If I could have my perfect Friday night, it's Truck Series is on and maybe a Caps game, like a hockey game, and I'm just sitting in my hotel room or dashing food, laying in bed because I have a 3-year-old at home and I have one on the way in February, another kid. So just getting sleep is awesome. And I am kind of a homebody and like by myself anyhow. So I typically just try to get sleep because Thursday we usually have a very early flight, or Friday we usually have an early flight. But I probably should be slightly more social. I have a food list that I stick to with my buddy Matt, and a few other drivers that will kind of drag along and just try a few cool places on the road. But I stay away from all the social stuff because I stay away from all the drama of the sport.
All right. Um, you've raced in Cup for a few races, and obviously with the Xfinity car. Have you seen any difference between the Xfinity Series car that's raced today as opposed to the Cup car? That's, oh my God, I'm just looking at my car at my calendar. Almost 10 years ago.
Man, the drivers are crazier now. That's probably the majority of the difference is like in the 4-year break that I took while doing PR, I noticed that everybody got younger. I had gotten older and it was like a one lap race every race. Like every lap was a qualifying lap. And I think that's a byproduct of stages, as well, where everybody's in a hurry all the time. There's no tire saving. Um, they took a lot of the strategy out. So I really have to get myself going before a race, because I'm used to playing the long game. And me and Mario in our first meeting, we did go over that, and he knows like, oh, you're pretty good long game, but man, you're qualifying and other stuff could use some work. So I think I just got to get better at finding speed right off the bat, and that's probably the biggest difference is just the level of aggression that so many of these kids have, because the average age really is like low 20s now. It seems like.
Yeah. I mean, even if I was to race in NASCAR, I probably would have missed my opportunity by like, I want to say like maybe 5 years. I'm 27. Even if I decided to enter at 21, I probably wouldn't even have a shot. My third and final question for now before I turn it over to DLB. What does the off season look like for you? Do you have anything exciting coming up? Any vacations, anything like that?
Still boring. So far I've knocked out Paw Patrol Live. We did Bluey Live a few weeks ago, so we've got a few of those down. Renaissance Festival this weekend. Wanted to go like do a small trip just to go see some family in the Midwest, with my daughter before the next kid came, but got jury duty, so can't make that up. Um, and then we got a test coming up in January. I mean, it's really just like build this nursery, try to clean up the house a little bit, do some gear inventory, and make sure we're all set for sponsors next year. It's boring, but I think boring is what keeps everything moving forward. I wish we could do a family trip, but honestly, with a 3-year-old, a family trip is going to, the grocery store right now. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm just having fun, just being a dad and being home.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily call all that stuff boring. I would call it productive, you know?
That sounds sexier, but boring is like my brand. Yeah. I take a lot of pride in my being boring and just being a dad. It's exactly what I was looking for. I have an excuse to never go anywhere now.
You also have every opportunity to just expel out every single dad joke there is on the face of the planet.
Man, I don't think I can conform to that yet though. I'm still like playing COD, Call of Duty every night, not iRacing, just still a 12-year-old in a lot of scenarios, but for the most part like 80 years old.
Totally understandable. I think on that note, I'm going to pass it back over to DLB, see if he has any more fun questions for you.
We got a lot of
Perfect.
questions, so we're gonna kick it off with. You said you got a child due in February. How's it been? You know, you got a 3-year-old. How's it been having kids at the track and showing them what you do and the career you have built for yourself? And how has that made you feel as a father?
It's been way different than I thought it would be, just because you see during driver intros and the anthem, everybody standing with their, wife and daughter. And for us, my wife is a nurse, so she works 9 to 5 every day or 8 to 4, somewhere in there. And they've only come to Daytona, Charlotte, and I think both Charlotte, so 3 races this year. And my daughter is terrified of race cars, which is awesome. So hoping we can keep it that way. A little bit too scared. We got to back it down a little bit, but I'd rather her err on that side of the world rather than getting into it. So I think whenever we talk or wherever she's at daycare, she's like, "Mommy, doctor, daddy, crash race cars." That's like what we do for a living. I crash race cars. She's a doctor, so she's like, if anybody asks where I am, she just says, "Daddy crashed. Daddy get owies. Daddy's gone." So I don't know what they think I do, but they must just think I'm a terrible driver. So all good.
Everyone at everyone at the school must think that you're a crash dummy.
They might, yeah, they might not even think she has a dad. I have no idea. I do drop her off and pick her up every day. So I think they just don't think I have a job because I'm like always there in my t-shirt and shorts, and I just don't look like I've ever probably had a real job.
So we're gonna move on to the next fun question is hockey. Clearly you're a fan of it. You played hockey in the past. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get into hockey and why racing over hockey?
I can answer the last part way easier. I am not, well, I'd like to think I'm good at racing, but I know I'm not good enough in hockey or big enough for that matter. I'm only 5'9", so I got a lot of concussions just playing college hockey. I can't imagine what it'd be like if I actually continued to play. I still play beer league, like men's league, every Sunday, Monday. So that's really tough after a long travel day. But I have no idea. I've asked my dad why we got into hockey because I was born in LA, basically, and that's not a big sport out there. Neither is racing. But I think he just liked watching Wayne Gretzky because he was, actually active when I was living out there. And to me, it's always been the opposite of racing. Hockey, you go out there and just a maniac, and you start fights and react exactly how you feel. Whereas racing, you have to be calculated and take the race lap by lap. So it's just kind of like I go out there, get my aggression out, or get beat up, one of the two, and then go to the racetrack and be a little bit more calculated.
Do you ever get any hockey fights or you leave them for the racetrack?
Yes and no. It's been a while. Maybe like men's league fights are really just you swinging at each other with your mitts on. So it's not. I don't know if I consider it a fight. If anybody like that's actually my men's league team heard me say the word fight, they'd probably call me out for it, even though they'd call it a fight at the moment. We have incidents. That's the best way to put it. But um, no, I haven't been in a fight probably since college. I know I can take a punch. So if we ever get in that situation on the racing side, I know I can at least eat a punch, but I don't know if I can throw one very good.
But hopefully we don't gotta find out in the upcoming racing season.
It'd make for good content. I've seen your content. You got some good stuff in Atlanta with Kyle.
Oh,
So
yes.
I'll have to
Yes,
love
we
him.
did. We did get a good fight there of Kyle in Atlanta. There was some
Exclusive video.
angry crew chiefs that I guess I was the only one that filmed it, and
Yep.
the crew chief got a little suspension. So, whew, didn't mean to
You
get
gotta
the
monetize that.
yeah,
Gotta sell that to
exactly.
somebody.
we got some good views on that. I mean, we're gonna be
Put that on
filming
World Star.
every week next year, so I mean, I'll be there ready to go if needed.
I'll fake fight. I don't care.
Oh, cool. All right.
I did that after Martinsville. I grabbed Matt Benedetto and we started just swinging because we saw the cameras interviewing somebody in the foreground. So
That's what we need.
figured we at least get somebody going.
He's a big guy. He's a big guy. I think
Yeah,
that's
he would just shot put me.
that's exactly what we need. Okay, so sim racing. You got a big sim setup behind you. How do you feel like sim racing has helped you every week at the racetrack? And do you ever use any of the, like for instance, the Chevrolet simulator that they have?
I've used that 3 to 4 times, the Chevy Sim, and probably that one, not too much more. But I think the Chevy Sim's awesome, especially because you can compare data back and forth with other drivers. Ironically, I've been there with Kyle a good bit because he's so active there. But everything's going to be circled around me being an old guy. I don't get how these things help because all it does is screw me up. The more sim time I do, the worse I do when I get to the racetrack. So I'm trying to figure out how my brain and body gel with this technology because I'm kind of a seat of the pants kind of guy. I did a lot of sim stuff before Watkins Glen last year, and I could not have run a worse race. So I'm hoping I can figure out how to make it work eventually. But I don't hop on that rig ever. It just looks cool, and I probably haven't actually raced more than once or twice in the last 6 months. So not a great spokesperson for them.
Wow. Well, maybe now we're in the off season, you'll get that little racing itch. Speaking of racing itches, the Chili Bowl is coming up. You been a part of that event in the past. Will we ever see you back at another Chili Bowl event? And how was your experience overall with running them events in the past?
It was some of the most fun I've ever had driving a race car, at least in the last 10 or 15 years. And that's why I'll never go back because it was so addicting. And I'd never raced a midget outside of the Chili Bowl, and I didn't realize you only get like 15 seconds of practice. So yeah, that was not a good decision on my part. Pretty sure I couldn't get the car out of gear going up the ramp, and I don't know if you know that anybody knows how that's set up, but it's like a ramp of people that are actually pushing cars off of the track, and I just drove through like 3 cars because I couldn't get the car out of gear and just ran like, yeah, it was wild looking. Glad my GoPro didn't work for it, but ran over probably 3 or 4 different people. Finally, after 2 more years of that, felt like we're actually making decent speed. Was racing against like Ryan Newman and Sammy Swindell and a lot of guys that have had a lot of success there. And I think my daughter was 1 year old, and I said, "This is it," because I don't want to continue to put time and effort and sponsorship money into this, and not into continuing to further my NASCAR career, and also ask my wife to ask her parents or my mom to come down and spend a week here and babysit right before we go to Daytona and the West Coast swing. So, just a lot of factors that played into that. But honestly, like the Chili Bowl is the coolest event of the year. I feel like from a racing perspective, and I, in another life, would love to do that. But in this old man being a dad life, probably not the best decision.
Come on, you're still young. But okay, so obviously when you don't come from money in NASCAR, you got to work harder than all your competition that got their opportunities much easier. What advice would you give a young race car driver that may not have the finances to jump up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series as easily as some of these other drivers have?
My half joking advice is don't do it. And that's like, it really is half joking. It's like, that's why I don't want my daughter to race, is because you can do everything right. Literally everything. I could tell you exactly what I've done and what other drivers have done and pick your path. And you just might not be in the right place at the right time and it might not work out. But if I'm the optimistic side of me, it's trust the process. Like everything in my life, whether it was getting dragged into a fraternity, which I am the least bit of a fraternity guy in the entire world, led to a sponsorship. If it's that radio show, led to me being in NASCAR. Me doing PR got me the sponsorship with CorvetteParts.net, which brought me to Alpha Prime Racing to give me the best career or best spot I've ever been in racing. So being a PR guy, joining a fraternity, being on a radio show, and then getting a lead generation job during COVID, working in the supply chain industry, doing email marketing and building a sales pipeline really is what got me to where I'm at now. It's not like I had a big jump in my career during COVID or anything. It's just that I learned how to do outreach and I learned how to manage a sales pipeline. And I never would have thought any of that stuff was going to contribute to me being in a better spot in my racing career ever. It was just trusting the process and continuing to get better and look at how I could take the things I've learned and apply it to racing. So I couldn't like build my own career and be in the spot I'm in right now. So just trusting the process has really, I guess, kept me sane through all of this more than anything else.
It's truly motivational and very inspiring that, from 2012 to 2022, it took nearly 10 years to land that full-time ride. What kept you motivated during that time to keep pushing through? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy when you got a dream and you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing no matter what. I'm going to make this work. And ultimately, at the end of it, you got opportunities to drive for Four Loko and Snapchat and, now going into your second full-time season in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and everything's looking great now.
Yeah, I think just the fact that the power broke. I think that's a book. I should probably have it right there. I wish I could grab it. Just the power of not having a choice. Like I had to make it work. I've had a lot of normal jobs, and I said this yesterday, but the job kind of sucks when you literally look forward to a bathroom break and you're just like, oh man, I can't wait to just go sit in the bathroom and look at my phone for 10 minutes. I didn't want to have that life. I didn't want to drive 40 minutes to work both ways, sit in traffic, and be like half committed to something. And I've known my entire life that I've wanted to be a race car driver. So that was probably the majority of it. But then also the ticking time bomb of being a dad. It puts a lot of pressure on you to not just make things work for yourself and for your own internal motivation, but also because I don't want to screw her future up for my selfish dreams. So having to make it work from a financial aspect and make sure that it's like a stable job for myself and my wife is probably the biggest thing in the world. But outside of that, I want to win races, man. It's still that stupid dream that I have to tell my manager all the time. He's like, well, we could probably make more money doing something. Like, I just want to be in the best spot like I possibly can be for racing because that's all I've ever wanted to do. And maybe I could make more money doing something else, but man, if the highs and lows of the sport are irreplaceable by anything else. Like you can't, I don't know, you can't find the emotional roller coaster that we put ourselves on for some reason in any other facet of our lives.
Absolutely. When you got a dream and you chase it, this is almost terrible advice. I wouldn't want to give it to anyone, but me as a content creator, it's almost like you don't want to have a plan B. It's plan A or nothing. And it's like you're going to go all in on it no matter what, no matter if it works out or not, you're going to chase that goal. And it's almost horrible advice, but it's about the best way to succeed. And I feel like that's a lot of what you have done. You have done whatever job a push through, whatever you had to do just to keep your foot in the door. And after 10 years of pushing and pushing and pushing, that door finally cracked and just broke down. Okay, walk on in.
Yep. It doesn't seem real because I was always like, man, I'm going to have an I made it moment. It's going to be when I signed my first cup contract. I'm going to be in the press conference. And like I was in a 500 square foot apartment with my wife and dog, and they scanned it over to me. And I was just like, oh, okay. Scanned it back. And then it was like, all right, cool. Now what? Like there was nothing there. And then a full-time season, I was just worried about if a sponsor fell through, like how was I going to make that up? And that's just something you can't ever, stop from happening. You could have every race sold, and every year something's going to fall apart. So I don't think there's ever a moment where you feel like you made it, because even if we finish second next year every race, all we're going to think about is, man, we didn't win a single race. So that's kind of the problem with being in racing, I think, is you never have a real win. Like in most sports, it's 50% of the time you win. Our sport, we're just always looking at what we don't have. So it's a tough mindset to go into.
Absolutely. And I feel like DGM is, traveling with them throughout most of this past season. They are so close that they just need that one little lucky break on a super speedway, on a road course, where the case may be. We have seen Ross Chastain, go and win stages at Coda, like prove that the car has speed on the road courses and still land his top fives and top tens. We've seen Kyle Weatherman go and snag a top 10 at Daytona, and Josh Bilicki put together his very good runs over time. It feels like they're so close to snagging that first win. What would it mean to you to be able to bring them that first win next year?
Oh, I looked up their best finish yesterday. Was it fourth?
I believe so.
I feel like it's fourth.
Yep. It was.
I was thinking that. I'm like, well, as a guy who has 0 top 10s last year, and I think I'm the only full-time guy that somehow managed to avoid a top 10. At this point, that's the first box I want to check because it's got to be a NASCAR record. Somebody's got to look that up. It's got to be a NASCAR record to not have a top 10 in this many starts. But a top 5 would be a win to me at this point, for sure. But I mean, there are real wins. Like we could go out and win Daytona, and I don't let myself think about that because there's enough heartbreak in my life right now. Like in general, man, last thing I want to do is set myself up for failure there. But it would just be so freaking cool. I mean, a dream come true doesn't, begin to really put it into perspective because it would not seem real. I probably would just never sleep. So after that, just so I never had to leave that day.
Daytona is one of them tracks where you go through the tunnel, you like almost get goosebumps in February, the Daytona 500 weekend. And I mean, any win at Daytona is massive. Obviously, if that being the next race on the schedule, how big will that be to you to be able to make that your first win if you can somehow pull that off, and ultimately I would imagine it would feel like every bit of work in your career would just automatically be worth every ounce of it. And I feel like that would be a really, really cool deal if you could make that happen. And I'm a big believer in DGM.
So am I. I mean, I've also only had a leased motor one time in my life, and we're gonna have one for Daytona. So I know I'm gonna have one of the best cars I've ever had. Mario already told me if we're not qualifying in the top 10, he's gonna be pissed. And I don't think I've ever been told that, especially at Daytona, where equipment really comes into play. I do have a Daytona trophy right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably my last race when in the Grand Am series. So it'd be cool. It'd be cool to win anywhere, man. I'd win in somebody's basement right now at this point. Like I haven't won in a go-kart race in a while because I just haven't left the, competed in much outside of racing or outside of NASCAR. But and if you could win at Daytona like my buddy Jeremy Clements did and so many other underdogs have, it'd be cool. We'd be in the playoffs, and the last thing I'd be thinking about probably is the playoffs because all I'd be thinking about is holy crap, we just won a NASCAR race, which would be really cool.
And it is so cool when them underdogs go out and win them super speedway races like Brendan Brown or Jeremy Clemens or, Jill Burton for the times he won at Talladega. It's such a cool deal to see them underdog teams pull it off and get it done. So I want to pass you back to Cameron Romano and see what final questions he has for you.
All right, this one's it's kind of a silly question. So if you had to go up against any NASCAR Cup Series driver, past or present, at whatever track you would want, you get 5 laps, and whatever era car, who would it be, what car would it be, and what track would it be?
And that's a good one. I've never gotten a question close to that one. Past or present NASCAR driver? Ooh, let's see.
And it could be in any series. It could be Cup Series, Xfinity, trucks. We can even go as far as modifieds, weekly racing series.
I'd probably go, let's see. I'd go with like Tony Stewart just because he was my hero growing up. Brickyard. I'd just go with Brickyard because I know that track is so meaningful to him as well as my family. He would kick my butt because I've only raced there probably 4 or 5 times, but be able to race. I think I did race against him at the Brickyard, so that might be a terrible answer now, but still my pick because Tony Stewart was the man. And if I gave a Dale Senior answer, then I'm just being a NASCAR guy. So I'm going to go with Tony Stewart. And I have raced against Jeff Gordon too, so I've checked both of those boxes. But
well, yeah, you ran Cup Series in 2016, right?
Yep.
Okay, so did you run full time or did you run select races?
20, uh, 16 I did I think 16 of my BK season, so I ran 4 races, I think. Indy, Texas, Richmond, maybe New Hampshire. All I know is the
Oh,
first race I ran was like Jeff Gordon's last playoff run. I crashed. I didn't crash. I dragged the fence to stay out of his way because I was like, if I wreck my hero in his last year and eliminate him from the playoffs in a practice session, I'm going to get like absolutely killed trying to leave this track. So I was just trying not to wreck Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Tony Syrup. Like I could screw this up so bad.
yeah. God, I miss that era of NASCAR. I really do.
Yeah, it was
Um,
cool. Even
yeah.
Carl Edwards, like so many names like that were just unreal.
I miss Kurt Busch. I'm just
He
throwing
was a
that out
really good
there.
guy.
I I got
He's
to
not
watch
dead.
his
He
last.
still is a good guy.
No,
Yeah.
oh yeah. My final question before I pass it back to DLB. What is your most favorite track to race at, and what is your least favorite track to race at?
Rotating answer. Whatever track has sucked for me the least recently. Man, it was Richmond. Like it's always been Richmond my entire life up until this year. We had the worst race ever. And now they took it off the schedule, so that sucks. Mid Ohio took that off the schedule. Uh, favorite racetrack now? Probably Dover. I just hate how it actually races. But I'm going to say Dover because I've always had good runs there, and I was really happy with our run this year, except for the fact that Kyle Weatherman beat me because he was the small team that beat me, and I'm like, well, we had a really good run. We barely missed the top 10, but DGM kicked our butts, and I'm really looking forward to going there and seeing, how we can perform together because that track was only an hour and a half, 2 hours away from where I grew up, and hopefully we can get a top 10 or just do something really cool in practice or qualifying.
All right.
It's
All right.
fast. I've also crashed like
Yes.
pretty big there, and it hurts. There is no small hit at Dover.
Oh, oh yeah, I could imagine. I've been to Dover, I think like 4 times now. All the wrecks that I've seen in person there, they don't seem small.
No, there is about a full year of my life I do not remember, and it's like 2017, and that's because I blew a right front tire at Dover, and like
Ooh,
probably 300 days that I have no recollection of, and just was throwing up endlessly. So
oh my
still love
gosh.
that track for some reason. No idea. I guess because I don't remember the pain.
There you go. There you go.
Blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. On that note, I'm going to pass it back to DLB for any final questions.
That sounds like a bad crash. My goodness. That sounds awful.
It was not fun. Yeah, it was not a good one.
Not a good one. Gee, was that your worst crash, or do you have one that's worse than that?
That one didn't visually look bad, but it hurt. The Indianapolis, I got hit by Parker Kligerman, and he had lost his brakes, and it was like a 90-degree left road course corner, and I thought a bomb went off in the car because I was like, it was the same impact angle as if I was at an intersection, because I took a hard left and he just blasted me right in the right and basically where my butt is in the car, and I all I heard was my spotter say look out, and I've never heard a spotter just say look out, so I didn't really know what to do, and by the time I reacted I was just blasted, and I just remember being in like the fetal position in the race car, and like my entire leg was bruised, upper body all messed up because I didn't own my own seat because I couldn't afford one at the time. Then I bought a new seat last year, so that really pushed me to like, hey, I don't want to die in one of these cars. I should probably figure this out. And that crash might not even look bad either on video, but it hurt so bad in the car.
How long did it take you to realize, like, what happened? Like, I'd imagine just driving, look out, pow. It's like, I would be so clueless on what just
Yeah.
happened.
I am a weird dude, as you guys might have already figured out, and like all I want to do is listen to my audio after the race to see what I said because I think I was just like I keyed up and was just like ah! Like didn't say anything of any use, just like a loud groan into the mic,
Oh my gosh.
and just remember being bent over and like they showed on camera I was just like doing this like ow 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 because I thought I broke my leg, but Daytona this year I think it was Jeremy Clemens's brake rotor almost went through the windshield. It hit the windshield. It was so loud. I thought, once again, you just hear pow, and then you don't know what happened. And I look, and there's a hole in the windshield, like right here. And the first thing you do is just like, oh, okay, good. Yep, everything's still there. And I like felt my face. And I'm like, all right, just don't say anything over the radio, because if there's a hole in the windshield, we might get disqualified or something. And I'm like, I think my face is still there. So that's good. But Denetto had the same thing when that Austin Dillon crash happened, and I don't even know what year. I don't even want to guess. So I'll be way off. And like motor came out, it went through his roof, and he had the same exact reaction of like, all right, yep, head's still there. I think arm's still there. Good.
It's
It was
crazy.
2015, and I was there.
You were there.
Oh, really? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
wild.
It's crazy
I was in bed.
windshields cracking, because at Talladega we hit something in the second Talladega race, and I remember we went and looked at the car after the race, and there's like a crack
It was
in the
Talladega. We
windshield.
might hit the same thing.
Yeah, what? Okay, so what? I remember I was looking at the car after the race. I remember Kyle just said like we hit something and there's a crack in the windshield, and it's like you don't
Yep.
want to like
He
make
hit
a
it, then I
big.
hit it.
Yeah, he didn't want to like make a big deal on the radio about it because you don't want to get parked for it. But I remember after the race, like
Yep.
we all went over to the car. It's like, ew, that looks a little ugly.
The weirdest things that happen in race cars will never be said on the radio. Like, yeah, I mean, when you're younger, I had a Hornet in my race suit when I was younger. I like wore my race suit around my waist, and then I put it on. It was a Hornet, and I
No.
stung me so many times. Qualified to the pole, didn't know what. I thought it was like a metal shard going into my back. Pulled it down, Hornet popped out, and a quarter midget. I had some battery acid that was leaking all over my leg, and that like burned me up pretty bad. Both those times I ran really good, so maybe I just need something crazy like that to happen.
So you
I
were
don't know.
driving with the Hornet in your fire suit.
Yes, and like it sounds like a skit, but I can get my dad on record to tell him the story.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
it was,
horrible. I've never
so-
heard that in racing. That is wild.
yeah, it seems fake. I wish it was.
I feel like DGM is watching this right now, and
I hope
they're writing notes down on how to make sure you do better this coming season.
Mario's like,
Yeah, they don't know me
Hornets,
well enough yet.
check.
They'll be like, what are his fears? What are his strengths? Like, what can we do to make this guy drive fast? Nothing? Okay.
Oh, they're gonna find your
Hornet,
fears.
check.
They're gonna find your fears.
Battery
Yeah,
acid,
I hope
check.
not.
Kyle,
Man,
Kyle,
I think every race car driver is afraid of everything.
For
Like, when you
Kyle-
actually break it down,
it was a
just
fear of
running from your
frogs.
fears.
Kyle had a fear of frogs. The
okay,
team,
that's weird.
They
Dale
kn-
Jr.'s jewelry, he's frogs. What the heck? I'm needles, man. I don't like needles at all.
needles. Oh no.
You know what? Neither do I. I'm just not a fan of needles.
Yeah, with tattoos over there.
No,
Yeah,
if
okay.
yeah, I was gonna say you got a few. I could probably get a tattoo if I want to race. I'm getting a tattoo because I won't see the needle. But my God, if they try to give me an IV after the race, I told them like I will fist fight all of you to not get this done, and just give me all the Gatorades. I will. I don't want to punch anyone in the head. I like you too much. Just let me get out of here, please.
So before we wrap this thing up, I want to know if we're all gonna go down on record if we win Daytona that we're all gonna go get matching Daytona tattoos.
Man, we'll be butt naked running down whatever Daytona Boulevard and getting tattoos. Yes.
I am for it. I will be there for it, and I'm filming every second of it.
Well, yeah, we might have to upload that to a different channel, but yeah, we can do that.
We'll definitely make it happen. So before we wrap this
Hey,
thing,
top 5, man. I mean, I'm not trying to lower the bar too much, but it's at that point, a top 5, I do the same thing.
we're gonna celebrate.
Listen,
We're gonna celebrate.
your words. A top 5 is considered.
Don't clip
a win.
it. Do not clip this.
Tattoos for everyone. So before we wrap
Yeah.
this thing
I'm
up,
in for the tattoos. That's easy.
before we wrap this thing up, is there any sponsors you'd like to shout out and thank? And where can the people find you out on social media?
Yeah, just at Ryan Ellis Racing on all platforms, and obviously want to thank you guys for all your support, being so welcoming to the DGM team, and just excited to honestly just be part of it. And man, I suck at remembering every sponsor out there, but Classic Collision, Eclipse Claims, Snapchat, Sweetwater Construction, Southern Elevator. I'm looking at all the helmets in the background and trying to catch more, but yeah, I think we've had some new sponsors that we haven't announced, and there's We have like 15 or 20 different primary sponsors. I suck at remembering them all, but I try my best. I hope they know I love them, even if I'm like the worst at remembering them.
It's a big deal for next year. Well, we appreciate you for coming on to the Pit Crew podcast for episode number 22. And just looking forward to next year. Really looking forward to it. So thank you so much for coming on here tonight for the Pit Crew podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Cameron, it looks like it's tattoos for Daytona.
Tattoos
All I
for
ever wanted
Daytona.
was just,
Yeah.
is that a song lyric?
Oh, yes, it is actually. We'll have to transition real quick. Yes, so the artist is Red, like the color, and the
Yeah.
song is called Cold World. If you want, I
Okay.
think we follow each other on Instagram. I can send you I can send you a link to the video.
On it up.
So while Ryan's doing that, let's give away some merch here, some Kyle Weatherman merch. So we're
Let's
Heck yeah.
do it.
giving away a Kyle Weatherman t-shirt to one of the commenters, and the lucky winner is going to be Mark Brown. What you got to do, Mark, is DM Go Drive Smart over on X, over on Twitter. Send them a tweet, send them a message, let them know your shipping address, and you'll be ready to go. So with that said, I think we're going to wrap up the podcast. Thank you, everyone, for jumping in to episode number 22 of the Pit Crew podcast, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.